Hey everyone, happy Monday. Welcome back to the b8ta TV studio for this special episode of b8ta Insider. Thank you guys so much for joining me here today. I am so excited because today we are joined by Favai, who is the CEO and founder of Island Avenue. Island Avenue is an apparel company that draws inspiration from surfing, hip hop, LA streetwear, and Pacific Islander culture. And Favai is actually joining us live today from our Las Vegas store in Caesar's Palace to tell us more about how he founded the company and where it's headed in the future. I can't wait to get into it, so let's bring him in now. Favai, thank you so much for joining us. How are you? You're in Vegas?
Hey, we are in Vegas. We're recording live right here from Vegas.
So good to see you. So tell me first and foremost, what brings you to Vegas?
Well, it was actually wifey's birthday. So just want to wish her a happy birthday. She's here now. And we was able to, obviously get some rooms comp, which is great here at Caesar's. And then at the same time, we wanted to stop by b8ta and check out the clothing behind us. So it was a win-win situation.
Absolutely. Well, happy birthday to her. Super excited to have you joining us to tell us more about the brand. So let's start off. I would just love to know what inspired you to start Island Avenue.
Well, the true inspiration behind it was actually a family. It was a family affair. Mm-hmm. So, I want to give it up to my wife and my son, who's always been the core of Island Avenue. My son tuning in from Pullman, Washington. What's up, champ? I know he's checking it out.
Hey,
got his game at the end of the month, his first game, so he's gonna do great. But definitely, they were the true inspiration behind it. But also from a streetwear point of view, as well as from a business point of view, we felt like there was no one in the apparel industry that was actually kind of resembling, where we came from and our background and our point of view in terms of apparel. And so we definitely wanted to actually put that out there, and that's why we was able to start Island Avenue.
Mm-hmm. And tell me where the name Island Avenue comes from.
So it's actually a cool little twist. When I was studying the streetwear model, and we'll talk about more of that in a second as we did last week in our prep call, I noticed that obviously, everything is in the name, right? And so what I wanted to do was create a name that actually combined a couple different cultures. Obviously, LA street culture, our Polynesian culture, as well as the whole surf aesthetic, the California coastline, surfers and stuff like that. And so what I noticed that was, in order for me to do it, I had to come up with a unique name. And I had a million different names, especially, coming from that whole LA culture. And so I came up with Island Avenue. Ironically, Island Avenue was the street that we grew up on in Carson, California. And it just so happens that it was like, I don't know how, as fate may have it, it was like 10 Samoan families that moved literally from the islands to this one street, and it was called Island Avenue,
Wow.
And so the cool thing about it was we were able early on to get a good taste of culture, right? I didn't grow up in the islands, I grew up in Los Angeles, but we were able, because we saw so many of us that looked like us, we were able to get a piece of the islands there. We was able to see our culture being performed like literally on the street. And I spoke about that last week, Noel, where I have a vivid memory of a full-blown like Samoan chief ceremony in the middle of the street, right? Like you're supposed to get permits and you're supposed to, to do that to shut down the street, right? And so it was literally to have families on both of the sidewalks, and there's these two chiefs in the middle of the street. And so for me to actually see that, being performed there on Island Avenue, it was cool. It was a safe haven for us. Again, we had so much of the culture there. And then it was, in the late 80s, early 90s, unfortunately, that's when the whole gang culture had kicked in and kind of things went south, But before that, it was great to, grow up there, you know what I mean? And it's part of that whole, migrating here and overcoming so much adversity and then being able to build a brand from a local brand to a global brand is the goal. And we want to be able to share that, inspiring story, because I believe it's more than just a Samoan story. I believe it's a human story of us coming here to this land and everyone chasing after the American dream and being able to say, hey, despite whatever you go through, you can overcome such adverse conditions and then be able to, accomplish whatever goal. So that's where the name comes from.
Yeah. I love that. I love that. And I love that you are not only creating one-of-a-kind streetwear pieces, but also really making sort of a name for Polynesian designers in the fashion space, which is amazing. Yeah. And tell me more about how you've sort of managed to not only celebrate your Polynesian roots, but then also kind of, celebrate your LA upbringing in the brand and in your designs.
Great question. Great question, Noel. And that was a major challenge. And to this day, it's really a major creative challenge that I have for my creative director that I'm bringing on, Donnie, as well as our graphic designers, because we're trying to literally create a brand in terms of combining all these different cultures for the
Right.
first time, right? So being able to, stay true to that LA kind of culture, that aesthetic, as well as, incorporate bits and pieces of the Polynesian culture, as well as have some of that surf aesthetic in there as well. And so being able, whatever the theme is, as well as whatever the aesthetics are and the graphics are, is being able to say, all right, well, this is the theme, this is what we're going for, and with each piece has to have these elements in it, because at the end of the day, we're staying true to exactly what the brand is. So whether, again, growing it from a local brand to hopefully placing Island Ave in Dubai, as well as Japan, because b8ta is there as well, and hopefully by the end of the year we'll be placed there, that the goal is to always have those elements in the core of the brand, because that's at the core of it, what it is.
Yeah. And tell me a little bit about, we spoke about this, about sort of inclusivity, creating inclusivity in the brand. Even though, you're drawing inspiration from Carson, which is, kind of a subculture of LA, and then also from your Polynesian background. But how are you making Island Ave an apparel, brand for everyone?
Yeah, great question again. And that was always the goal, mainly because I felt that Island Avenue as a brand can actually be worn by everybody, right?
Yeah.
And so, but the problem is that some of the Polynesian symbols, as well as some of the tribal symbols, a lot of the everyday person really likes it. I mean, it aesthetically looks great, right?
Yeah.
The Rock was able to, show his tattoo on the GQ magazine, which pretty much is plastered everywhere. So that was a great, him kind of planting the seed of that. But the problem behind it is that not too many of us actually know what the symbols mean, right? So it's being able to say, look, we want to put some of the tribal symbols discreetly here and there in the designs, and then be able, through story and through content, be able to tell them these what the symbols mean. This is the significance behind it. And at the same time saying, like, I'll give you an example of the paisley pattern, which is the bandana pattern. It's really like connected to Los Angeles, right? Especially gang culture, right? And it's being able to take that paisley pattern that everybody knows about, that's connected to Los Angeles, and saying, okay, we're going to take the paisley pattern and kind of incorporate the tribal within the paisley pattern. And then that one, when we can put it onto a graphic, it stays true to the core of the brand, right? And it's creatively making sure that it works and it comes together that way. Again, the kids that play with my son in Idaho, to the kids in Carson, to the kids in Huntington Beach, they all were like, whoa, this is, it's great. It looks great. And that's something they can actually relate to. So that's the creative challenge, and we're up for it.
Yeah, definitely. Well, and I'm learning a lot from you about streetwear and sort of what that means. So can you give us a little crash course, Streetwear 101? Fill us in.
Absolutely. So streetwear is near and dear to my heart, mainly because when I decided that apparel was going to be our lane that we were going to go down, right? I kind of studied, okay, well, what does fashion actually make up? What does that actual market actually look like? So everybody's aware of, Paris Fashion Week and all the high-end brands there. Then you have all these other subcultures within fashion that aren't really, I guess, respected, so to speak, because it's like, oh, well, anybody could print on T-shirts, right? But the problem with that was these young kids, right, that supposedly didn't know anything about fashion, didn't have no business sense, all of a sudden, these printable T-shirt brands started to boom, right? And that was the boom of the streetwear culture. And the reason why I gravitated towards that was because these are all young girls and young guys that have no design background. Some of them have no business background, but it's that whole do-it-yourself, DIY, kind of get after it with whatever resources you have, really scrappy, gritty, young entrepreneurs that were able to build multi-million-dollar brands from nothing, pretty much nothing, right? And so that whole mentality of saying, look, I don't have much, but I do have a story, I have a name, and I have a brand, and I want to share with other people. And I think there's other people that can relate to it. That's the part that I was totally blown away. So when I was able to, and again, this is advice to a lot of entrepreneurs that are going, that I share with, that whatever industry you're going to go into, study the business model. So I studied the creative part of streetwear. Then I also studied the business model behind streetwear. And I started to see where the guys were getting the t-shirts for, how much they were getting it for, how much the designs were, how much they were selling. So I knew the margins. I was like, whoa, this is crazy. Like they were selling t-shirts for like $80. Like, and I knew exactly how much they were costing, right? And so when I saw that, I was totally blown away. So the three big brands that were totally a big inspiration of mine, Crooks and Castle, which is Dennis is a great friend of mine, great friend and mentor that I work with to this day. I started Crooks and Castles. The Hundreds, I was able to beat Bobby Hundreds recently, as well as Nikki Diamond with Diamond Supply Co. And these are young guys that just had a perspective that started these brands, and they've been around 12. Diamond is going on their 21st year this year. And so, as you guys know, with business, like the statistics show that most businesses fail in the first year. Half of them fail in the first year. Yeah. So for some of these guys that had no design background, no business background, to be around 20 years, like it's unprecedented, right? You got Ralph Lauren that's been around 50 years. So I gauge success in terms of longevity. Like how long can you actually stay in the game? You know, how long can you actually overcome adversity like COVID and still stay in the game and still have a point of view that's relevant to the consumer, to the customer. Right. And so to have these guys that have built these brands from nothing was totally inspiring. Fairfax is the big, what they call the streetwear mecca, you know, in Los Angeles. And you go down there, you have these brands from these kids that have built multi-time, and again, they're distributed around the world, right? Yeah. And that to see that, it was so inspiring to me. And so my goal was to say, look, I have a perspective, and it's called Island Avenue, and I want to be able to share it with the world, because I believe, again, like what Diamond did in streetwear, I want to be able to share it with the world as they did. Yeah. So hopefully that makes sense.
No, that was so great. I like I said, I'm learning so much from you. And your story, I mean, is so fascinating to me. Having a background as an athlete and then going to medical school, thinking you were going to be a doctor, now an entrepreneur and a designer. You launched the brand in 2014. Tell me a little bit about how it's evolved and how you've evolved with the brand.
Oh, wow. Another great question, Noelle. You really did your homework. It's definitely been a journey. As I've always said, success is definitely a journey. You know, when I returned from med school, I noticed that, you know, obviously, you know, my family's first, and I had to make sure that, you know, again, we keep the lights on, so to speak, right? And so I got my first taste of entrepreneurship through a training and academic program company. And so once I was able to do that, just based off of my brand and being a Division I athlete, you know, I caught the bug and I haven't looked back since. And so I knew once going into apparel, we launched Island Ave in 2014. And again, to all entrepreneurs that are watching this, it was something on the side because I ran a gym at the same time because we had to pay bills. Mm-hmm. But it was, you know, it was my passion project, so to speak. And it was like, you know, consistently trying to launch things. And the craziest thing is I spoke with you last week, Noelle, like from 2014 to 21, from the logo development to the aesthetic, it is like, you know, at first we had more of like a real gritty kind of LA street aesthetic to what it is today, to what you see behind us, right? And so it was crazy as we started to kind of put out certain logos, because that's, again, the first thing you want to do as a brand to you know, for the consumer to actually see the logo and identify it with you. We noticed that this script logo that I have here was the one that everyone gravitated towards. And so, you know, they say, you know, you can have all these ideas, but the market is going to dictate where you're going to go, right? And so once we launched this logo, from there we knew exactly the lane and the aesthetic that we wanted to go down. And that's why, you know, when you actually see a lot of the pieces now, you'll have a little bit of that, you know, that surf culture element to it, a little bit of the streetwear graphics, as well as bits and pieces of the Polynesian culture in there. And that's what we want to stay true to as we continue to grow.
Yeah. Well, and you mentioned some of your inspirations, some friends of yours in the fashion industry that have inspired you. Who else, you know, who or what, even outside of the fashion industry, continues to inspire you?
As I've always said, you know, from the beginning, my family, you know, my spirituality has been the anchor of a lot of my inspiration behind the brand. Also, just life experiences. You know, you go through things, and it really, as a creative, kind of molds you to who you are, and it also molds your creativity, right? As they say, some of the most powerful music came from painful people and painful places, so to speak, right? So that's where I draw from. Also, you know, current movies, art pieces, I have a good friend that actually runs the licensing behind Basquiat. Basquiat, one of my favorite artists that we hope to collab with in the future. So all these from a creative standpoint, I'm really motivated and inspired by all these different aspects of my life that kind of mold the creativity behind Island Ave. And as we continue to grow, again, it molds our perspective on what we want to share with the world. But at the end of the day, the core of it is consistently trying to inspire. Being here in Vegas, being here with b8ta in Vegas, being at Hudson Yard. Shout out to Craig out there, man. He's been a great guy. So many, he's man, been able to send him so much content from there. The b8ta family and the Formed by b8ta family, everybody's been great. And it's just been a dream come true for a local brand, Polynesian owned brand like ours to be at this level. Because all of this was just, again, a dream. It was really a dream, and to be placed here at Caesar's Palace and be able to, share it with our local community and great following here has all been a dream come true. And we're so, just so thankful, just so elated to actually see the pieces here, like at this stage. And, again, I didn't make it to the NFL, unfortunately. My son will, right? And I'm putting it out in the universe. But to make it at this level in apparel and be sold at some of the most prime real estate in these malls throughout the United States has been such a dream come true. So we hope to continue to build with b8ta as we go forward.
Absolutely. Well, we're thankful for the partnership as well. Very thankful. And, we not only love the line and the apparel, but we also stand behind what you do as a philanthropist. And tell me more about sort of Island Avenue being apparel for a purpose and what that means.
Yeah. So apparel for a purpose was actually a tagline that we utilized because all the businesses that we own, there's a give back component to it. We want to make sure that whatever dollar that we actually take in, that a portion of those proceeds goes back to the community. I know what it feels like to go without. Unfortunately, I lost my older brother in 1992 due to that whole street element. But I dedicated a foundation that we created on behalf of him. It's called the TUT Foundation, TUT, and it's an acronym for Triumphant Under Tragedy. And so we've been able to hold a Christmas event every year. Unfortunately, last year we weren't able to do it. It's called Christmas in Carson, in which we give out free clothes, free food, free toys for all the inner city community. So we have family and friends and community from all the local areas, Compton, Carson, Long Beach, Wilmington, Harbor City, we all congregate there and we're able to give back, and again, I take pride in that, mainly because too much is given, much is required. Going forward, also one of the main goals that I want to be able to do for the kids specifically is an academy that teaches inner city kids stocks, coding, and real estate, as well as financial literacy. Because my thinking and my vision is that the next Mark Zuckerberg is coming from the inner city. He or she just doesn't have the tools. And I want to be able to provide that, through the nonprofit. So everything we do always has a give back component, a philanthropic component. And so that way, everybody that's watching any piece that you buy from Island Avenue going forward, portion of those proceeds goes back to the community. Because again, we were blessed to be a vehicle to inspire, but we also want to give back to those in need. And especially during COVID, we've seen a lot of family and friends, unfortunately, have passed away, families that have to pick up the pieces and move on. And so we want to be able to be a vehicle for them, whether it be from a financial standpoint or whether it just be from an inspirational standpoint. A lot of people have followed the brand from, just locally launching to, where we're at now. And that's an inspiration. And again, once it's all said and done, I will continue to do that. I will continue to do the philanthropic work because I really, really get a lot of fulfillment from doing that.
Yeah. That is just amazing to me. I mean, I love that giving back component. I think it's so great for our viewers to know that when they purchase a piece of Island Avenue apparel, they are too giving back. They are joining in your mission, which is an incredible mission. And talking about, the apparel and sort of moving forward in your vision for the future, what can we expect from Island Avenue? And, not only from the company, but even from an apparel standpoint, are we going to get some new spring pieces?
Yeah. Absolutely. Great question again, Noel. Yeah, we actually have the spring release coming up. We're launching mid-February of this month. And then another exciting component is, like I mentioned, I'm bringing on a creative director, a good friend of mine. And so we're going to get into cut and sew. So we're going to start to do
Okay.
some cut and sew pieces. I want to keep it under the wraps because this has been like a passion project for us for a long time. And so
Okay.
that's the kind of like the progression of, we want to go from printables of, tees and hoodies and tanks. So now we're going to get into full blown cut and sew, in which now
Wow.
we're going to source fabrics, pattern making, sampling, do that whole thing, because that's exactly where we want to go. A lot of, what I can't say is there's some traditional, I guess, Polynesian pieces that are really, when you see these pieces, that you could see that in Hawaii and throughout the South Pacific. We're going to take a lot of those traditional pieces and put our twist on it. So we're excited to actually show that to the world. We've been working on it for a while, and b8ta is going to be the first distribution channel to actually get it. So we're excited for that. Yeah, we're definitely excited for that.
We're so excited for that too. And before you go, I just want to give everyone out there a little bit of free fashion advice. So what's your fashion philosophy, or like what would be your advice to someone who wants to maybe bring in some of these edgier sort of streetwear pieces to kind of spice things up in their closet, but maybe they're a little bit afraid, or they don't know how to sort of curate a look that's reflective of kind of that streetwear vibe? What would you say to them?
What I would say is the reason why and I forgot to mention this, the reason why I actually got into apparel is mainly because by nature, I'm actually a private person, right? So what I noticed was that you can actually put on a piece and it actually says something about you.
Yeah.
So I thought that was very cool by either wearing, a tie-dye sweater or this windbreaker, and you didn't have to verbally say anything, but it was a form of your expression, right?
Yeah.
And so what I tell people all the time is, whatever you actually wear, and when you go out in the public, or whatever you put on, it says a lot about you as a person, right? So whether it's a tuxedo, a suit, tie-dye shirt, whatever it is, you're actually saying something without verbally actually saying something, right? So to me, it was great because now I could put on some crazy pieces. And again, maybe it was just coming from a family of 10, not getting attention and me wanting attention. So I'm just going to put on some crazy different pieces, right? So it was a way for me to kind of express myself without verbally actually saying something, but also being able to stand out, right? And that was another thing, especially when streetwear and in fashion period, is you always want to wear something that makes you stand out from the crowd, right? And earlier on, with a lot of these streetwear brands, it was a discovery thing where you couldn't just go find it at the local Zoomies, Tilly's, and PacSun. You literally had to drive and get these pieces. So they were very exclusive, right? So being able to say, look, I feel comfortable enough to put on this graphic tee with a Balenciaga, some Balenciaga shoes with, a Versace hat, whatever it is, to kind of mix it up, because at the end of the day, that's who you are. You know what I mean? And you're expressing yourself without verbally actually saying anything. So it goes back to, everyone's style and how you want to express yourself to the public. But I think that's the dopest thing with fashion is being able to put a piece on or a whole outfit on and saying, this is who I am, and I'm comfortable with it without verbally saying anything. And I think that's the most powerful thing about fashion. And so our goal is, through the pieces that we sell through Island Avenue, is when you put on the piece that it actually feels, first off, the feeling of it feels great, right? And then the next thing is being able to say, man, when I put on this piece, I feel recognized. I feel inspired. I notice how a lot of people give me compliments, right? So it's being able to provide that for people just through apparel. And I think, and so that's why when we design certain piece, we always design with the consumer in mind and saying, man, I hope when they put this on that they feel just as empowered as I feel creating it, and that's the most fulfilling. Sometimes I just like when other people are wearing out in that, because I love to see it on people. And I love to see, hear them say, man, I went to the mall, people complimented me, and we're like, man, that was the goal all along. We did it, So just little things like that, it goes such a long way, because originally that was the goal, was for people to wear it and feel like, man, I wore the hoodie and I was, in Idaho, and, first off, it was, great, and it was warm, but at the same time, the design, people were like, hey, where'd you get that hoodie? It's a great hoodie. So, I mean, that's the core of, what we're trying to do.
Absolutely. Yeah. I love that, people can wear these pieces out, and it's a conversation starter. Like you're saying, like, hey, I love that. It's so unique. I've never seen that brand before. And then gives people an opportunity to share your story, which, is incredible. And just, I mean, I can tell, have put all of your heart and soul into this brand, and that is really what is reflected here. So again, we at b8ta are so excited to be partners with you. Can't wait for that upcoming spring collection. And tell people where they can find the collection.
Yeah, so you can actually, obviously, through all our b8ta stores. So we're here in Vegas. So if you guys are in Vegas, definitely come by, say hi to Lainey, say hi to Danny. Great staff here. We also are in Hudson Yard, informed by b8ta in New York. So definitely stop by. I believe the general manager there is Craig. Great staff there. And then also online, Island Ave, ISLANDAVELA.com. We have some pieces there that they can actually purchase there. And they can follow us on Instagram at Island Avenue. So everything kind of goes there, and it's just pretty much funneled through all the distribution as well as social channels. But definitely follow us, stay along for the ride, catch this wave with us because we're just getting started.
Thank you so much, Bye-bye. And hey, I know you're wrapping up your trip to Vegas, so enjoy the rest of your time there. Thank you so much again.
Thank you so much for having us, Noelle. You guys have a great day.
You too. And thank you all for joining me today for this episode of b8ta Insider. We'll see you tomorrow for more episodes of b8ta Unboxed, and you need this right here on b8ta TV.